Hey everybody, I'm out here in Cleveland, Ohio, getting ready to take a tour of Cleveland Whiskey Company. Now, this has been one that's on my list for a while because they have an incredibly interesting proprietary way of making their fantastic whiskey. Come along, I can't wait to show you what we have in store.
Hey everybody, welcome to Cleveland Whiskey. Come along for the tour.
My name is Tom Licks. I'm the founder and CEO of Cleveland Whiskey. I learned distilling 50-some years ago when I was in the Navy. I was sent to distilling school for making fresh water out of salt water. Got stationed on this old destroyer, and the first day I'm on the destroyer, some chief comes up to me. Now it was a reserve destroyer. It was being decommissioned. None of the officers were ever there. So this chief petty officer comes up to me and he says, "Kid, you're going to be," kid, obviously it was a long time ago, "Kid, you're going to be my apprentice." It takes me down through a bunch of spaces. We open up a hatch in the deck, and down below, we go down this ladder. He had sort of jury-rigged a still, and he was fermenting fruit juice from the galley, just sort of sugared water. And what do you need for distilling? You need a heat source and a cooling source. Well, you've got steam lines running throughout the ship, at least these old ships. He had tapped into one of those. You've got saltwater cooling lines going throughout the ship for cooling equipment, cooling spaces, for firefighting. Well, you tapped into one of those. He had a cooling source. So he was making what he called hooch, not only for our ship, but all the surrounding ships. So he taught me not only about how to make, not whiskey, but make alcohol, make distilled alcohol, but a lot about some entrepreneurship as well. Yeah. Now that's sort of one of the stories. The real story behind Cleveland Whiskey, though, is I read an article about the growing middle class in China. Now, this again was a decade and a half ago, and the author talked about people were buying affordable luxuries as they entered the middle class. And as I thought about that, I said, it's not just affordable luxuries, it's conspicuous affordable luxuries, things they can share with their friends. It's not a new car, but you know what, an imported bottle of whiskey, and I looked that up and it turned out it was right, that was something they were buying. And I'm thinking, oh my God, the middle class population in China was really on a tear. Same in India, South America, around the world. And I thought, we're going to have a tsunami of market demand. And given that you can't crank up production like cornflakes or computer parts, I said there will be a market opportunity here. And I've always been an amateur chemist. I've got stories about almost burning down my house when I was a kid. But I started experimenting, and I said, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this. I think if I had a better attention span, I'd be a chemist. But since I'm not a chemist, just an amateur one, I made some mistakes that ultimately turned into some technology that allows us to produce some pretty unique things. My mother was born and raised here in Cleveland. I had never lived here, but I had other businesses. I have a doctorate in marketing from Boston University. Most of my professional life was around that area. My mom was living here again, and she got sick and needed 24/7 care. My wife and I moved out to care for her, thinking we would move her as she got better. And unfortunately, she didn't, but I stayed here, did other things, found out that Cleveland was sort of a remarkable city. A lot of comparisons to the curve that Boston took in its resurgence. Cleveland's doing the same thing. I just sort of fell in love with the city. And of course, once I named the company Cleveland Whiskey, I was here to stay. It's in my heritage. I've got, grandparents who were here and my mother was here, but my father was from New Jersey. So most of my life was really spent on the East Coast. We distill like anybody else, but we do some finishing that's different than anybody else. Our maturation process is different. And importantly, what it allows us to do is use other woods. So, if you wanted to use like a black cherry wood or a hickory or something like that, you might try building a barrel out of it. And I'm sure people have tried, but if you did, it would leak like a sieve. So all whiskey manufacturers, we all use these oak barrels, whether it's European oak, Hungarian oak, Asian oak, or the white oak here in America. We're using oak not because somebody was prescient enough to say, you know what, we'll put this young spirit in an oak barrel and it's going to taste better. It was an accidental discovery where it was a storage system. It's got a bulge in the middle, so you can, just like me, so you can roll it down a street or a ramp up onto a ship. And at some point, somebody realized that using those barrels gave it a better taste. But we're sort of stuck with oak because they hold liquid. Well, I'm not. So we use something we call pressure aging. We put relatively young spirits in these pressure-capable stainless steel tanks. We apply pressure variations, essentially doing the same thing that happens in a rick house, where every day you've got a temperature change that causes a slight pressure change, moves the alcohol in and out of the pore structure, and that gets its flavor, then it gets its flavor and its color. We do the same thing, but using pressure and vacuum and using those cycles very aggressively, moving it quickly, and we can put woods like apple, orchard woods. We do use hickory, black cherry, sugar maple, all sorts of things, and we can give it some really unique flavors that you'd never get from a barrel. It's something I created myself. It took a while. I blew up in my basement well over 1,000 mason jars. In fact, my wife thought that ultimately the police were going to knock on the door because you could hear these things explode, just like a little muffled bang. And down in the basement, and I'm sure some of the neighbors noticed it, plus every weekend I would take my truck down to the local gas station, fill it up with ice, and bring it back in and load it through the old coal chute into the bottom of the basement. And it was very empirical. I just kept trying things over and over again, and I wound up with some ideas that allowed us to create the systems we have here today. So I actually taught entrepreneurship for a little while in a local liberal arts college, and I would tell my students there, much like Nike, just do it. You're going to get better market reaction. Do it on a small scale. See what really happens, and to the extent that you can do that, you're better off. It's great to write a business plan, and we would write business plans in my classes, but I said there are more businesses that never get started because people are trying to perfect their business plan than I think anything else. Write a quick business plan, take a look at it. You're going to change it over and over again, but get out there and do it in a small way if you have to. Well, let's talk COVID for a second. I mean, everybody had that problem. We all went through it. I remember very early on, and I had heard about a distillery making hand sanitizer using the distillation. I said, that's a great idea. We had a meeting that morning and all agreed that this is what we were going to do. And that afternoon, I got a call from the pharmacy manager at the Cleveland Clinic. She had been on one of our tours in our old facility, and she said, we're already running out of things. We're preparing for all the other stuff. Is it possible? Is it a crazy idea to think that maybe you could make hand sanitizer for us? And I said, absolutely, we'll do it. We're in. She then asked, well, what's it going to cost? And what sort of contracts can we draw up? And she said, I've got a team of lawyers. They can gladly do that. And I said, no, we just already have an agreement. We've got a handshake agreement. I'm never going to charge you a dime. I'll make as much as we possibly can, and I'll just give it to you, and that'll be fine. In the end, we wound up making 416,000 6-ounce bottles of hand sanitizer for the Cleveland Clinic. Also gave a lot to local or even regional police stations, fire stations, emergency medical services. And the good news is when people found out that we were giving it away, we started getting donations of, skunky beer that was being returned, which we could distill. Wine that was being returned from the retailers back to the distributors, which we could distill. Procter & Gamble sent us about 8 55-gallons drums of sanitizer. We just had to do a little bit of it. It was almost there, and we had to finish it off. We had box companies donating boxes, container companies donating that. So it really became a community initiative, and it helped fortify our team. We've got sort of this simple mission statement: make good whiskey and do the right thing. So it fit in there perfectly for us, and so it was adversity, but it sort of got turned around. Yeah, we would distill it. Yeah, beer is hard because it foams and it's a very low alcohol. Wine is better, higher alcohol. It doesn't foam when you're doing it, but it's all. When somebody talks to me and says, "Well, gee, I'm really a beer drinker," to me, beer is just adolescent whiskey. It's just got to go through another step. Beer is the fermentation process. You get a certain amount of alcohol in there, and in distilling, you take that quote beer and you distill it and concentrate the alcohol. I remember making wine in college in my dorm room and things like that, but it wasn't like this was my dream. I'm more of a technologist, and I think of us as really a technology company in the whiskey space. It's very important to us that we make good whiskeys, innovative whiskeys, creative whiskeys. That's what we're really focused on, trying to do something different in the marketplace. I'm not trying to replicate what other people are doing in traditional manners or in traditional approaches, but I think we can do better. It's our new building, but it was actually built in 1910. You'll notice that it's a very long and narrow building. It's about 400 feet long, 45 feet wide, designed to bring in ice cars with fruit from California. It was designed and built just for that purpose. To the rear of me, there were two sets of railroad tracks. We actually have some of the tracks we pulled out of the ground here. We're going to use them as steps or footrests on the bars. They would unload on that side, and then everything would be shifted over to actually horses and wagons on the other side. We've got some great pictures of back in 1910 when it went into operation. So we're sort of bringing it full circle and now using it again for something related to agriculture, even though it's a step removed from it. But yeah, we took over this building. It hadn't been occupied in 15 years. It had gone through its own hard times. The roof was leaking everywhere. There had been all sorts of critters living in the building, 4-footed, 2-footed. There was no wiring. All the plumbing had been stripped out. So we put in literally miles of wire, all the plumbing, trenches in the floors, a lot of new cement, heating system, cooling systems, everything else. It's total refurbishment of it. It would have been a lot cheaper to start and just build a new building, but I hate it when these old buildings are torn down. So we're bringing this one back to life. We've made it operational. We've still got to make it pretty, but we're getting there. And it will be for distilling, for barrel storage. We own the building across the brick street here as well, and we'll have a store. We'll do events here. Ultimately, we'll put a restaurant in this building as well. So they're all my babies, right? So we make a rye whiskey that is finished with black cherry wood. Nothing else like it in the world. I think it's one of the best things we've ever made. It's not appreciated nearly enough. But I love that. We make a wheat penny whiskey, which is a wheated bourbon, again, finished with black cherry wood. We use black cherry wood a lot. But we do a range of things. There's one that we don't produce anymore called Smokin', which we actually smoked the wood in a charcoal smoker before it went into our reactors. And it gave it this beautiful, malty, smoky taste. And we may bring that back when we start doing malt whiskeys here as well. Although around the world, it's huge. I want people to come to Cleveland Whiskey. I think they'll have a great experience. I think that it is, it's different. It's not like going to the classic whiskey trail tours, things like that. I think that here you will learn about some of the technology and what we do and how we do things differently. And of course, you'll get to taste everything that we have. And absolutely, I invite people to come down and we're down in the flats in Cleveland, right in the city of Cleveland. And you'd be surprised. If you're not from Cleveland, you would be surprised by Cleveland as well.
Welcome to Cleveland Whiskey. My name is Michael. I will be your tour guide today. This is our brand new home here at 601 Stones Levee here in Cleveland, Ohio. We just moved into here after 13 years being over at Cleveland State's campus. We have been around, like I said, for 13 years. I have been here for the last 8. I pretty much handle everything from tours to our sales to events, marketing, things like that. So what I like about Cleveland Whiskey, one of the reasons why I work here is I am a big fan of our technology and our take on the whiskey making process. We are also one of the most well-known distilleries in Ohio. Fun fact, there's about 60 of them. But what we do here, we are known for our finishing process. We do play around with a lot of different woods and unique wood finishes that you don't see other distilleries use. So what is unique about the building that we are in now is this building has been around for almost 120 years. It sat empty for almost 20 years before we purchased it. And now we're in the process of rejuvenating it and bringing it back to its former glory. To give you an idea of what this space used to be, right over here, it used to be the Consolidated Fruit Auction Company. They started here in 1908. They were around for almost 25 years before they moved out. What was really nice about this is once we announced that we were moving to this location, we had a family reach out and say, hey, our great grandpa used to work there. Would you like some photos? We said absolutely. So it gives us a nice glimpse of the past. Essentially what would happen is rail cars would show up on each side of the building. They would unload all the fresh fruit. A bunch of gentlemen would come through, look at all the fruit, go upstairs, make bids, it would get auctioned off, get loaded up on horse and buggy, and go out to all the supermarkets and stores, things like that. We also have stuff like the old auctioneer stand, and then the corner that we're standing over here used to be where everyone would come up, pay for everything. And these windows here are the windows there. So we've made a lot of changes over the last 120 years or so. Well, we don't really know too much of the history of this building outside of them and the Malcolm Company being here. It's one of those things where no one else reached out saying that, hey, great grandpa used to work there, here's some more photos. So it's kind of just where we are now. But but because of the rich history of this building, it would have been a lot cheaper for us just to demolish this and rebuild in the space. But our owner is really big on keeping the historical relevant of the building and the surrounding area. So we are spending a lot of time bringing this building back to life. As part of what we are doing, we are going to be redoing the space that we are currently in now. We are about 50% done with improving the location and space that we have. We are in the process of putting in a bar area, and we are also in the process of putting in a special event space upstairs, which you will see next. So up here, we are on the second floor of our distillery. This space up here has pretty much just been torn down to the studs. This is going to be phase 3 of our rebuild. We are in the process of doing a special event space up here. So far, all we've done is redo the ceiling, put in sprinklers, but it's going to be a lot nicer when everything's said and done. We have this wonderful view of the river, and this bridge has been stuck up for the last 30 years. Finally got the okay to get torn down, so we will have a very nice view of the city of Cleveland, especially at night. It'll give a lot of ambiance to the space. It'll be weddings, special event space, if you want to do tailgating or having happy hour stuff before going up to the stadiums and whatnot. This will be a prime space for that. It's also nice that this space has a little bit of character. If you look at this back wall, you will see that the brick is all charred. So there was a fire at some point in this building. We don't know too much about it, but it's just something else that's, nice, gives a little bit of history to everything. But as you can see, we have Rocket Arena, home of the Cavs, and Progressive Field, home of the Guardians, just a short walk away. There's going to be a lot of construction going on around here. Eventually, there'll be a giant Cleveland Clinic building there as well. So if you look over here, this kind of shows the history of Cleveland whiskey. This is where we started. We were on Cleveland State's campus for almost 12 years. That's our owner and founder, Tom Licks. We pretty much tried to work with as many local people as possible. So we even have our own, Wes here from Akron Honey. We do a honey whiskey with him. He does a bourbon barrel-aged honey as well. We've had everything from live music to weddings. We even had former President Obama come through here when he was going on re-election, talking about manufacturing in America. He was speaking at the Wolstein Center here in Cleveland, stopped at the Magnet Building, which is the Manufacturing and Growth Network, which we were in at the time. And while he was there getting a tour of the facility, he came through Cleveland Whiskey. So we had the distinct honor of saying that we had a former president come through Cleveland Whiskey. Over here kind of gives you an idea of the building that we took over and all the work that had to go into it, all the love and care we kind of put into it, all the busted out windows, the old Malcolm sign that had to come down, all the brick that was falling down, pretty much all the piping and electrical and floors and stuff are redone, regraded, rerouted. You'll see all the lighting and stuff we have in here now is all LED. Try to keep things as energy efficient as possible. So it kind of gives you an idea of where things started to what our goal for the future is. Here are some of our renderings. Our goal is to have a nice outdoor space, raised patio space, patio heaters if you want to go outside and have cigars, things like that, sit right out on the riverfront. Even to having our brand new stills and hopefully having stills being able to go through the roof. So back here, this is our wood shop here at Cleveland Whiskey. Essentially, we do things a little different than the traditional distilleries. We have all of our barrels brought here, we drain them all, we come and we actually start breaking them down. What I mean by that is we take all of the different oak barrels, and if anyone's never seen the inside of an oak barrel, it's your lucky day. You can kind of see the char and everything inside here. But we will essentially take off all the barrel rings, take up all the staves, we'll go and we'll sand them down, and we'll get them ready for our process. So essentially what will happen is they'll all go on these racks, and then by us sanding them down, we'll remove all this rust and all the dirt off of them right here on the sander. They'll come right over here. They'll all get cut in half essentially to like a 1-inch wide stave. That's the word I was looking for, stave. We'll come on over here. They'll go on our saw, and essentially they'll all go and get cut up into 1-inch by 1-inch cubes. These 1-inch cubes are essentially what sets us apart from the rest of the industry. We do a different style of finishing process here. We do something called pressure aging, pressure finishing. You'll go and you'll see that later on in the tour that we use giant stainless steel quote-unquote pressure cookers. They are our finishing tanks. They get really hot, really cold to simulate what happens in a rick house. For anyone who does not know how a rick house works, they are not temperature controlled. So in the summer, the rick houses get really hot, porcelain would open up and absorb the raw whiskey. In the winter, pores close, push the raw whiskey out kind of like a sponge. Therefore, year after year, season after season, the whiskey is going slowly in and out of the wood. That's where your flavor and color comes from. So by us cutting up the wood into 1 inch by 1 inch cubes, we can get 6 times the surface area compared to just the inside of a barrel stave, just that char. So a lot of what we'll do is we'll have the charred wood, we'll cut it up, it'll go inside of our tanks, and we can use way less wood to get much more flavor. Over here, this is our traditional wood cutting machine. This is the only one of them in the world. The reason for that is nobody else needs 1 inch by 1 inch cubes of wood. So what we essentially do here is we'll put a barrel stave here, a barrel stave here. They'll run through. These saw blades will come down on top. You got the 6 saw blades in the middle that go side by side, and essentially it'll pull the wood in. It'll get cut up, and it'll fall right down here. This wood will then come out of here, go right on top here, and it'll get sifted, and that's how we get our cubes. So we are pretty much zero waste when it comes to whiskey barrels. What is also pretty nice is one of the things that we like to do after this is finished. A lot of people say, oh, do you use the wood more than once? Well, we really can't, because when we get done using the wood, it looks like this. They're essentially soaked and infused with whiskey. So the reason why we can't use these again is most of the wood flavor has been taken out of these. I'm sure that you at home can't smell it, but we can smell a lot of whiskey coming out of here. So we used to sell these as something called smoker bricks. We would essentially have these in a container. You'd put them on your grill, use them for smoking meats, and you get all that whiskey flavor and stuff out of there.
Can I just take these home for my green egg?
So this is one of the things that while we've moved into this space, we have discontinued this product for now, but the goal is to bring it back at a later time. I said we try to do as much zero waste here as possible. So everything we do, we run down, we cut down, and try to find homes from it. So one of the things we do with here now is if any of the local restaurants over here, want to smoke meats and have the nice whiskey infused taste, we pretty much sell them to let them, go through big batches of these different woods. So one thing that's really unique about us is, while everybody uses oak, we can play around with different woods because of our technology. So right over here, you will see some of the different woods that we have found that work the best. Some of those are things like cherry wood, apple wood, hickory, honey locust, and sugar maple. Everything comes in plank form for the most part, outside of oak. Those are the barrels we break down. Everything else, like I said, comes in plank form outside of applewood. Anyone who knows anything about applewood and apple trees, they grow every direction that they want. So good luck getting a stave or a nice flat piece of wood coming out of it. So when we are back here doing our process in order to make our different wood finishes, whenever I come back here and I see that our wood maker is cutting down the apple wood and breaking it down in order to go on the saws and everything, I know to stay away from him because he's not having a good day. As you can tell, it's not exactly the easiest thing to deal with. But that's what makes us unique and gives us a different flavor profile. Most of what we do is not flavored by any sugars, syrups, things like that. Everything we do is just whiskey and wood. We are just lucky enough that through our technology you can use different woods. So what we do with these is, after they all get cut up and everything, they will go inside of our stainless steel tanks, as I mentioned, and that's where they'll do the finishing process, which takes 24 hours. Now, prior to them getting there, people wonder, does the wood go back into a barrel, like a wood barrel? Is that how we do our process? No, we do not. The whiskey itself is in the barrels for approximately a year. We go and empty it, break down the barrels, things like this, and then our process takes 24 hours. So when people ask how old our whiskey is, it's essentially 1 year and 1 day old. But because of our 24-hour finishing process, that finishing process essentially mimics about 4 years in a rick house. So when it first goes inside those tanks, the whiskey will still be pretty clear. Maybe it'll have a tinge of a brown tint to it, but only being in the barrel for a year, you're not getting a ton of that brown color coming through yet. But after 24 hours in a process, the whiskey is pretty much finished. It'll have that dark ruby hue, dark brown hue, amber hue that you're used to. And it's what makes us really unique is we don't have to have a bunch of barrels on hand. We can do more barrels on demand since we're only having things aged for a year before our process. So it allows us to, if things don't taste right or we find new technology, we can, instead of having to wait 4, 6, 8 years to implement that technology or try a whiskey and realizing it doesn't taste right, we can essentially tweak it the very next week. And that's one thing that's really unique about what we do. Essentially, if you were to come down and say, hey, I want to get a barrel, how long is it going to take for it to be made? From when we drain it out of that barrel and go through our process, by the time we filter it, proof it down, everything else, it'll take a week start to finish. So one thing that we have done with our move here is we're trying to be as self-sufficient as possible. So one of the things we had installed here, this is a reverse osmosis machine. So instead of us relying on distilled water or natural spring water from other sources, we can have it all distilled on property and use this to proof down all of our own spirits. So it should always taste the same. So our barrel strength is around 116. When we proof stuff down, our lowest spirit is 70. It's a flavored spirit. Our next lowest actual bourbon is 86, but most of what we do fits into the 90 to 100 proof range. I have a gentleman here that is asking about the column still and how it works, and I don't have an answer, and he said no one's been able to answer how a column still works, so I'm hoping you can give him some information.
Dude, my consulting fee is at least $300 an hour.
$300 an hour consulting fee? Okay. Alright, so how does a column still work?
So basically, you have your liquid in the pot there, you bring that to a boil, the vapor carries over, and as it travels up the column, the liquid collects in each bubble plate. When you look inside those little windows there, you see those little, they look like little bubbles.
Correct, yes.
I'm talking about. Yep. So basically, the liquid will collect on each of those plates, and then as that heats up, the vapor then rises again, and liquid will, as it's rising up through the still, that liquid falls back down through the still. A little bit of liquid will collect on the bottom bubble plate, and as that then starts to heat up from the liquid falling back down on it and the heat coming from the bottom, that will essentially redistill that and cleans it up every single time it goes up that still. And so what you're doing is essentially cleaning your spirit the entire time. So if you have like one of those massive 4-story like columns that you see at like some of the big distilleries, and they say it's been distilled 20 times or whatever, they're basically just saying it's been passed through 20 different plates on that thing. It just cleans the spirit up, and so for whiskey, at least for you guys, you don't always want to have a massive still because it cleans up too much of that spirit, and you're going to end up with like basically barrel-aged vodka, which tastes really gross. So it's just a kind of a balancing act.
So with so on the still I'm looking at right here, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so 6 little windows. That's 6 bubble plates.
Yes.
Does the spirit run through all 6, or do you say twice distilled only for the first 2 windows?
No, it would run through all 6, but
So you don't really think about it. It's so clean, it turns into vodka. So it just takes all the flavor and all the.
pretty much the more you distill it, the more you're stripping out really great flavors.
So if I wanted something that was more complex and had I guess a better flavor profile, distilling it once would be the appropriate amount.
No, it's kind of a balancing act. So if you just do it once, you might end up with like a really grainy. Just depends on the flavor profile you're going for, right? And so if you do it one time, you might end up with just like a really grain forward, like maybe too much grain forward spirit. Might be a little too rough around the edges. Yeah, sometimes the barrel's going to help that, but if you want like a really nice white dog, I would say you're going to want to distill it a couple times at least.
We had James, who was our initial distiller when we first started. He left. He got replaced by Brandon. Brandon was here for 6 or at least 6 years, around 6 years, if not more. And then he left to go out to San Francisco for a distillery to do different stuff there. And then we had Neil here for a little bit, and now James actually came back. He worked at Southern Tier for a while doing distillation there. So we came back, his family moved back to Cleveland, and now he's working with us again. Okay, so over here, I keep mentioning how we have our technology, how we do finishing, how we essentially do how's the word I want to use?
Giant.
No. Okay, here we go. So I've been talking about how we have our different finishing techniques, how we do things differently, how we essentially put them in stainless steel tanks for 24 hours to get really hot, really cold, stimulate what happens in a rick house. So instead of doing what Mother Nature does, we essentially use science to do the same type of approach in a much quicker amount of time. So these stainless steel tanks right here, these are our finishing tanks. This is where those 1-inch by 1-inch cubes of wood will go. And then over 24 hours, it'll run a bunch of different cycles, going hot, going cold, going hot, going cold. So the whiskey's constantly going in and out of the wood. Therefore, after 24 hours, it comes out as a finished product. You'll see how we have these LEDs up top here. Those will let you know what cycle it's on. Right now, with it being white, it's a finished cycle, so they're not running. When they're orange, it's on a hot cycle. When they're blue, it's on a cold cycle. It's one of those things so you know when you just walk by how far along in the process it is. And it's also so that if we're giving tours and people are coming up here and we see that it's orange, we tell them not to touch it because they get really hot. And so one thing that's nice is I mentioned the 5 woods that we do that work really well outside of oak, and that's cherry, apple, sugar maple, hickory, and honey locust. The reason why other distilleries don't use those is the wood is very soft and very porous, so you can't construct a barrel out of it. If you tried to, the liquid would kind of just leak like a sieve. So one way for us to test all different woods that we use this little guy right here. This is our little 5-gallon R&D reactor. So for the 5 woods that worked really well for us, we've tried 20 different woods that haven't. We've done everything from gray elm, the basswood, the peach wood, the pecan wood, and plum wood, things like that. They haven't tasted good. We have tried a wood that we were begging and pleading for it to taste really good, and it did not. Well, that wood was Buckeye wood. We would have loved to do a Cleveland whiskey Buckeye wood whiskey, but it did not taste good at all. So we're always trying to play around with different things and kind of see what our next flavor profile is going to be. But this is how all those are tested. That way we're not wasting a bunch of raw whiskey trying something that doesn't come out well.
So it's like your 1 gallon still.
Yes, it's a little baby. All right, so one thing that we do here, we do what's called plate filtration. What plate filtration does, it allows you to filter as heavily or as lightly as you want. So with these plates, we can take them out, add as many as are needed. These are our filters right here. They essentially go in each one of these plates and allow us to filter the product. Now, when I say these can be filtered as heavily or as lightly as possible, we do a lot of stuff called chill filtering. You'll see a little tank over there. It's covered in silver bubble wrap. That is our glorified freezer. Essentially, when we do chill filtering, we bring it down to as close to freezing as possible. And while whiskey itself does not freeze, by bringing it down to those temperatures, a lot more of the impurities come out in the product. So if we filter it when it's really, really cold, it pulls out a lot more of those impurities. Impurities like when you go and get a bottle of whiskey, you see, maybe some floaties and stuff in it. Well, when you bring it down to that cold, you can pull out a lot more of those impurities that would float in the bottle. Now, not everything we do is done like that. We do lightly filter some of our products. So some of them, like our applewood, will always have a little bit of sediment in the bottles. The reason for that, it's the same thing as like having yeast and beer. You can shake it, it goes away. You can just pour out the end of it. But those are essentially like glorified flavor crystals. If we filter it any heavier than how we filter it now, it strips a lot of the flavor out and it just does not taste good. So it's one of the things we've found that works the best by filtering it a little lightly like that and doing a non-chill filter so it doesn't get freezing. It comes out as a much more flavorful product.
So just for my own personal knowledge, does uncut, unfiltered mean more flavor?
Yes.
Yes. So why filter it all?
Because not everyone likes it like that, and sometimes having more flavor is not a good thing. And uncut also could mean that it's really high proof, so sometimes you need to add some water and stuff to it, because not everything tastes good at 120 proof. Some stuff tastes really good, but not everything. So it's all done in different mash bills, different char levels, things like that.
So it's filtered to the appropriate taste.
Yes, what our master distiller believes is the best filtering level for the product. So over here, this is our current bottling line setup. This is the bottling line that we brought over from our old distillery, our old facility. Essentially what we do here, everything's done by hand. We usually have 2 to 3 people working the line here. What we would do is we will take our stainless steel tanks, we'll bring them over to the corner here, we'll hook it up with the hose. It'll go to the filling station. We'll do 4 bottles at a time. They'll all get loaded up right here. We'll start it. It'll fill it up to the appropriate amount. We'll have another person over here putting corks and sleeves in, or in this case, this is our chocolate peanut butter whiskey. This is our Magic Rabbit. This gets screw caps. So essentially, you do one of these at a time on the screw cap machine. That's what this is. But if you're using shrinks and seals like that, this will get really hot and it'll seal the seals. And then you usually have a third person down here labeling the bottles, putting them inside of a box, and putting them on top of the pallet. So this is a very labor-intensive line. This is one of the reasons why we needed to move into a new facility. We wanted to get a new bottling line. So here, when we were at peak production, we were doing close to 120,000 bottles a year, 4 bottles at a time. Main reason why we needed to move a larger space, larger bottling line.
So is this the part of the tour where we roll a barrel over here and let me do a cask strength bottle for myself to go home with?
All right, we'll see. We'll see how the night goes. So one thing I can tell you is that when we take these tanks over here, when we have 3 people on the line running this, one of those takes about 4 hours to drain, and it'll do about 1.5 pounds worth of whiskey. So over here, this is our new bottling line. This is one of the things that our distillers are really excited for. Now, this will run. You'll pull the tanks over to the corner. It'll hook up. This will do 12 bottles at a time instead of 4. The first station will blow air into the bottles, get all the dust and debris out of them. The second station will fill the 12 bottles. Then they'll come through, go into the tumbler. The red tumbler here is where the corks will go in. They'll get pushed down. Then they'll come through here, wrap around, come on over here. This is where the seals will go on. And once seals go on, it'll run through the heater and get heat sealed. Come on, roll right on through here, run on down, go to the labeler. The labels will come on, they'll get pressed on, and it'll come out the other end. This is a machine that we're still, getting put together and getting operational. We're hoping it'll be operational within the next 2 months or so. What's nice about this, what we were told, is while our old line, the line we're currently using, takes about 4 hours to drain one of those big silver tanks, this is supposed to do it in about an hour. So we're hoping that by that it'll let us speed up production, do a lot faster, and start distributing to a lot more states.
And you said that it took 3 people to do the other line.
Yes, so this line also, in theory, will take 3 people. It'll be a lot less labor intensive. You'll have one person loading the bottles in at the beginning, someone, in theory, in the middle here, making sure nothing's getting stuck, everything's running smoothly, and then someone at the end taking the bottles up, putting them in boxes, and putting them on a pallet. Now, what's nice about this pallet rack right here is this is essentially a weighted machine that will always stay at the same level. So once it gets to a certain weight, it'll slowly lower. That way, you're not constantly bending over and hurting your back. You're just going side by side, putting the cases on. And then once the pallet's full, it'll go back to the corner here, go on the automated pallet wrapper, get wrapped up, and get ready to go on a truck. So over here, these are what traditional distilleries would consider their second barrel finishes. For us, there are third finishes. Our secondary finishes are our different wood finishes. So everything we do starts in an oak barrel and then finishes with whatever wood, whether it's oak, cherry, sugar maple, things like that. So that's our secondary barrel finish. So finishing is taking your completed whiskey and doing something extra to it. So you'll see a lot of port finishes, Cabernet wine finishes. You'll have different things like maple syrup finishes, things like that. So those are a lot of distilleries' secondary finish, because the original finish is the oak barrel finish, and it's going into a second barrel to get a secondary finish, which is a secondary flavor. Well, for us, our secondary flavors or finishes are our different wood finishes. So over here, when they come over to this wall, this is a lot of our third finishes. So we have stuff like things sitting inside of a blueberry cider barrel. We have some of our Christmas whiskey inside of different spices barrels. We have some apple cider casks, some rum cider barrels. We got some wine barrels that have been sitting in the back. And then even on the big barrel wall back here, you'll see that there's a bunch of maple syrup barrels, honey barrels, peach barrels, more red wine barrels, things like that, some single malts. What is very unique, one of the things that we found is we make you really good honey whiskey. And if you go and you look at other distillers like Jack Daniel's or Wild Turkey, they have honey whiskeys, but they're honey flavored whiskeys. Ours, it's done with, theirs is done with flavoring. Ours is done with raw honey. One thing we realized as to why a lot of big distilleries do not use raw honey and do traditional honey finishes is honey itself absorbs moisture out of the wood, therefore the barrels will start leaking. So you need to keep the barrels hydrated and keep watering them down. That's how you keep the honey and liquid from leaking out of the barrels. So most of the barrels you see at our distillery that are leaking are honey barrels because, they absorb moisture.
How do you keep a barrel hydrated?
Hose, water,
So you
just
just
water.
spray 'em down.
Yep. It's no different than watering a plant, just water in a barrel. So, but that's one reason, like for us, we can do 4, 6, 8 of those at a time because, maintenance, whatever. But if you're a big distillery like a Jack Daniel's, you're going to have hundreds and hundreds of those barrels because you're doing mass production. Well, you don't have enough time to sit there and water hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of barrels every day or every week.
If I can water a plant, then I'm just going to forget and kill in about a month. I can water my whiskey barrel.
Yeah, right? So a lot of what we do is we work with a lot of local distilleries, wineries, breweries, things like that, and we trade barrels. So we don't usually charge them for barrels. They'll put their, let's say, red wine in a barrel, do a bourbon barrel aged red wine. They'll give the barrel back to us with a little bit of wine still in it. We'll put our whiskey back in and do a red wine finished whiskey. So it works for both parties. Then we'll do cross releases where we'll release something, the winery will be here selling their wines, or vice versa. We'll go down and the winery will have bottles of our whiskey available to have their wine inside of it.
What's your Ohio wine of choice? Which winery do you like?
Now, see, that's a loaded question because Ohio wineries are notoriously known for being sweeter. We have a lot of really sweet wines here. That's kind of what we get in this region. But my probably favorite winery that has a nice variety, there's probably two. One is Sarah's Vineyard in Cuyahoga Falls, and the other one is the winery of Wolf Creek out in Norton. Those both have a nice variety of sweet and dry wines and have a very well finished.
Have you done barrel swaps with them yet?
We have not.
So when they're watching this,
yes, but right now the wineries that we do a lot of stuff with are down in like southern Ohio, which I haven't really been to. One's Vino de Pico, and another one is a winery and a cidery. That's Bent Ladder. We do a lot of our cider barrels come from that. So I have 4 of our different staples here at Cleveland Whiskey. On the far left, that is our 100 proof standard bourbon whiskey. Starts in an oak barrel, ends with our different oak finish. It is going to start off a lot of vanilla, a lot of caramel. You'll get that burn right up front on your tongue, not too much in the back of your throat. And that is one where it has a standard mash bill of 75% corn, 21% rye, and 4% malted barley. What's nice about that and the second one, our cherry wood finish, they have the exact same mash bill. The only thing that's different about them is the finishing wood. Like I said, the Cleveland Black Reserve starts in oak and ends in oak. This cherry wood starts in oak and ends with black cherry wood. Our third one is our cherry wood finished rye. If you haven't noticed, there's a theme here. The cherry wood is our most award-winning product because it's done so well. We came out with the rye and wheated version of it as well. The rye is 95% rye, so it is a very high rye. And then lastly is one of 2 flavored products that we do. That is our chocolate peanut butter magic rabbit. We do not use high fructose corn syrup that much. It's mostly cane sugar, and we use natural extracts, so it is a lot smoother. It's not as thick and as syrupy as a lot of the flavored whiskeys on the market right now. It is 70 proof. It drinks more like a flavored vodka than it does a flavored whiskey. So we have a 70 proof flavored whiskey, a 90 proof rye, our barrel strength cherry, that's a 115, and then our 100 proof black reserve bourbon.
so which one should we try first?
I would go left to right.
Left to right. Okay, so this is the 100 proof bourbon whiskey. What's your best selling product?
Either that one, this first thing we ever came out with 13 years ago. We've constantly tweaked the recipe over the years, so we think what we made today is better than what we made a year ago, which is better than 5 years ago, 10 years ago, so on and so forth. And then outside of that, our best-selling finish is our cherry wood finish. It makes a great old-fashioned for Manhattan.
I'm a sucker for such a good old fashioned. This is nice. This is like really sweet on the nose.
Mm-hmm. So that heats more in your tongue, not too much in the back of your throat.
Right.
It might be 100 proof, drinks more like a 90.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really like inviting. It doesn't give you that punch in the mouth that some of them does.
No, not at all.
And these are all a year and a day.
Yep. Outside of the Magic Rabbit, this is just white whiskey that is essentially caramel colored, a little bit of high fructose corn syrup, a little bit of cane sugar, natural extracts. Everything else is just whiskey and wood.
So now we have the Cleveland Underground. So Cleveland Underground, I've seen this, and is Cleveland Underground the brand of, or like the whiskey itself, or is this just the spirit line that it is? Because is there a difference between Cleveland bottled and Cleveland Underground? Or is this just the bottling change?
So the Underground is essentially our underground woods. It's essentially all the different woods that a traditional distillery would not use. Okay. So our undergrounds are our cherry, our apple, our sugar maple, our hickory, and our honey locust. So our oak is not in the underground line because oak is a traditional.
So it's like more of an experimental.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. So this one and this one are relatively the same, except foolproof with cherry.
Yes, exact same mash bill. You'll see the darkness of the color in there. It has a dark, like ruby hue. Anyone who does anything with cherry wood furniture, it has a dark cherry color. And like I said, all that color happened in 24 hours.
I mean, it's got a fantastic nose. I mean, that dark fruit like just jumps right out at you.
You get a little hint of that cherry sweetness on the back end. Like I said, pairs really well with an old fashioned or anything you'd add cherry or cherry juice to.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, you could like I'm a high proof snob myself, so like the 115 just automatically catches my attention. And then like I could drink this neat. I could put this in an old fashioned either way. It'd be
it opens
great.
up very well. So you mentioned that you like your proofs a little higher. Our standard version of that is at 94 proof, but if you like in higher proof, I figure we do barrel strength for your tasting.
Right. It's got it's got a nice medium finish on it. Like I said, those dark fruits and like vanilla flavors really kind of come out. That's fantastic.
I liked it.
So we have the rye.
Yeah, so the rye, the difference in this, it says 95% rye. Anyone who knows anything about rye spirits, they're a little spicier, a little bit more complex. I'd like to describe it as, if you have rye bread, it's going to have more of an intense flavor. Rye is something that I think is a little bit more of an acquired taste, and it is a whiskey that you will definitely feel all the way down. It warms you up from start to finish. But our cherry wood on the back end, that nice little sweetness really complements the spiciness of the rye grains.
It has like a nice baking spice smell to it there.
I like this being a little bit more like an entry level rye because of that cherry wood sweetness. Yeah, it has a nice balance to it.
It really does. That's the best way to say it too. Is that cherry really does balance out that rye spice. That usually is that kick.
I'm not a huge rye drinker, and I absolutely love our rye wood.
Yeah, this is really really nice. The finish is really nice. Wow,
it's a great Manhattan.
I bet it would. That's 90 proof.
Yep, 90 proof. Right. And then over here at the end, this is one of two flavored products that we do. This is our chocolate peanut butter. It is 70 proof. If it did not have the word whiskey on the bottle, you would not know that there was whiskey in it. It drinks much more like a flavored vodka. And with flavored vodkas mostly being around 70 proof, this is just like that, but with way less burn. We use, like I said, natural extracts, so it's going to be, a lot of people will think this is like just going to be peanut butter in the face. It's not. It is dark chocolate up front, notes of coffee and espresso in the center, and a nice creamy peanut butter finish. It is really good in coffee, hot chocolate, or an espresso martini.
On the nose, this smells like hot chocolate peanut butter, or peanut butter hot chocolate. Isn't it like?
I mean, it has
very
fantastic
desserty
nose. Yes.
Oh wow, that's
really good.
That's really good. So how do you drink this? Do you drink this neat? Do you mix this with a milkshake? What's your thing?
So it depends. Like I said, if you say you want to go tailgating or something for an NFL game or something, and you're not really in the mood for beer or something, throw it in your coffee, throw it in your hot chocolate. Very easy way to go. It is very good. If trying to have an espresso martini, something like that, but it's also good over vanilla ice cream as an adult milkshake. It's good as a white Russian. It's good to put in like pudding shots or to put in tiramisu or brownies if you want to bake with it. It's good over ice and after dinner, something to sip on. Or if you're like me and my friends, just 2 shots out of the freezer.
This is really tasty. I'm usually not a big dessert liqueur kind of person, but this would be great. Honestly, I could see tailgating for the Browns game with this in the hot chocolate or coffee mug.
Yeah.
Great.
And then lastly, I know we were talking about a couple different things. We have a product releasing in a couple of weeks, and I figured I'd let you give your thoughts on it. It is one of those things that we bring out from time to time. This is one of our honey barrels we're going to be releasing. This is our Wheat Penny honey barrel. It is our wheated bourbon with cherry that went inside of a honey barrel for a couple of years. We use natural honey, so see what you think of this. This is something we release from time to time.
This is one of the barrels that we saw
Yes.
leaking.
It'll end up getting bottled sometime in the next week.
What's the proof on it?
It's 85.
85. Very, very sweet on the nose. I mean, the honey really comes out.
Oh, yeah. I really enjoy that one.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, like it. Yeah, it's funny because like you say honey, people just kind of go, oh, I know that flavor, but like I'm I'm personally a big honey person. Like I put natural honey in my coffee every morning.
Mhm.
You know, like it's just, I mean, and those honey notes really kind of, it almost has like that sourwood honey taste that I love.
You can tell it's not a honey syrup. You can tell it's not a fake honey. That it is real natural honey that we use.
Wow, that is really good. That's very smooth. I like that a lot.
Yes.
It's worth having the leaky barrels.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's worth watering the barrels every week.
It's definitely a labor of love, that's for sure.
So these are all fantastic products. So as a bourbon and whiskey enthusiast, if I want to create or buy my own barrel from Cleveland Whiskey, do you guys offer anything like this?
So actually, yes, I'm kind of glad you asked. So we do something very unique that's not really done traditionally inside the industry. Because we have a 24-hour process, we play around with different wood finishes. We don't have a come out, pick out a barrel, and we'll bottle it for you. What you can do is you can create your own blend. So what that means is you come in, you sit down, bring some buddies, and you can try all of our different wood finishes at barrel strength along with our oak, and you blend them, create your own blend, let's say 40% oak, 30% cherry, 40% apple. And you really like that, and you say, hey, let's do that at 102 proof. We can go and we create a barrel for you at that, and that's anywhere from 120 to 240 bottles, and you can create your own logo to put on the barrel. So it essentially would look like this on the label, and then you would have your little logo on the side here, and your own proof and stuff, and it's our customizable barrel program, yes.
Do you have a rough price point for that yet, or are you still working on
So a half barrel is around, so that's 120-ish bottles, is around 4,500. Full barrel will be around $9,000. Like I said, that's 120 bottles to 240 bottles. But it's fully customizable. No one else will have something like that. You get to customize the label, do different things like that. So it's a much different process than what other people in the industry can offer.
So start to stop, I call you up, I want this on day one, 14-day turnaround, 1 month turnaround?
It's about 6 weeks, mostly because it takes about 3 to 4 weeks to get the labels designed and printed and returned back to us. But yeah, for a turnaround like that, you can pretty much come in, do your tasting within 2 months, have your bottle of whiskey.
And do I do my label design with you?
Correct.
Touching on something random we didn't even realize is I've actually worked with charities on designing their own labels. Huge pain in the butt to do on your own, because everyone always says, "Come, you have to bring us the label you want," and nobody knows where to start or how to do it.
So our labels are always this label, the Cleveland Underground label, and then we're able to customize this corner and put a logo and stuff on here and adjust some of the fonts and stuff on here. But it's this label design, but it can say Rush Balance Blend. This can be a fundraising blend. You can have your liquor store logo on here, whatever it is. It could even be Jonathan's blend. So we did a round of funding to help, fund the building, construction, and refurbishing of this new distillery. Our issue was we announced our plan, said, hey, it's going to take 3 years, $8 to $9 million. We have our building picked out. We signed the contract on it. We're good to go. 1 month after we made all that stuff public, COVID hit. Everything doubled and tripled in price. Everything took 3 times longer. So now we're about 50% done with construction. It's been 5 years and stuff on here. And while we are open to the public, we are doing tours, tastings, production, stuff like that. You can tell that we're not fully finished. We still got about half of it to go. So we're getting ready to do another round of investing that will allow you to essentially have your own barrel of whiskey, depending on the amount of money and stuff that you've donate, whatever the tier is. And it will allow us to help build out the rest of the distillery. And that is something we're going to be offering. My guess would be in the next month or two that'll start, and it should last for about 3 months or so, or until we hit the target goal.
So if people want to contribute, how do they get a hold of you? What's the best way to get a hold of Cleveland Whiskey?
So you can either reach out to us at clevelandwhiskey.com. You can go right in, reach out to marketing info that way. And I do believe that this round is going to be done on WeFunder, so you could be able to reach out on the WeFunder website as well, and just type in Cleveland Whiskey and it should pop up.
So for the WeFunder, do you guys offer tiers, or what happens per?
Yeah, so the last one that we did a couple of years ago, there was, you get a customized barrel head, you could get half a barrel of whiskey, you would get, we did an investor rye blend at one point that all the investors in a certain tier got a specialized blend with a customized logo on it, something we didn't offer anybody else. So all the different tiers have different perks. I don't know what it's going to look like this time around, but it should be something close to that.
So when everybody out there wants to find it, will it be advertised on your website, social media?
Yes, it should be on both, yes. And then usually the turnaround time for that, for the barrel investment program, I believe it's 4 to 5 years.
So you do your investment. You can also get it as a above average interest rate, so you get a higher return on your investment than if you just had a traditional savings account. So different ways to go.
I like it. And also really interesting, and I mean, bourbon is in such high demand, whiskey's in such high demand. To me, it kind of seems like a no-brainer and a great way to just put eggs in different baskets.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, especially with watching your 401k as of these last couple of weeks.
Your whiskey ain't gonna go bad.
Your whiskey ain't gonna go bad. And the nice thing is, if you come down to Cleveland Whiskey and you can visit your investment on the Rick.
Yeah, you essentially become a part owner. You can be proud of that. We have a lot of people that promote us everywhere they go. Many people in for tours, tastings, things like that. And it's something people are very proud to say, "Hey, I'm a part owner in Cleveland Whiskey. I invested in them, and love to watch them grow."
It kills me because when you did this originally, I saw it and I wanted to invest, and I didn't do it, and I kicked myself. So I will 100% be jumping in on this.
Hey, we appreciate it.
So this beautiful building, you're currently refurbishing it and everything. When do you open for the public? What about tours? What are your store hours?
Oh yeah, so right now we are open to the public for store hours Wednesday through Friday from noon to 5:30. We also do Saturday from 11 to 1:30, and then currently we are doing tours on Fridays at 6 p.m. and on Saturdays at 2 p.m. We are a little flexible and stuff for private groups, private events, things like that, but those are our normal public times right now, and you can book those tours on clevelandwhiskey.com.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us. So we greatly appreciate the time. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks for enjoying the tour. We hope to see you sometime soon. Come on down. We have about 12 different kinds of whiskey, all done on site. So feel free to try them and have a little tasty and see what you think.
See you soon.
See you soon.